Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Something is Up. My guest today is Dr. Yafi Yair, a clinical psychologist, hypnotist, and channeler who communicates with a consciousness known as Hathor, often described as a divine feminine intelligence connected to ancient traditions and the evolution of human consciousness. Yafi was born and raised in Israel in a very secular family, yet from a very young age, she reports experiencing unusual perceptions of energy, inner visions, and intuitive knowing. As she grew older, she followed a scientific path, studying psychology and clinical hypnosis. But eventually, she found that the traditional academic framework could not fully accommodate her spiritual experiences. Her journey deepened after a profound personal awakening, meditation practices, and years of exploration into altered states of consciousness, including training at the Monroe Institute. Over time, she began developing her intuitive abilities and eventually embraced channeling as a central part of her work. Today, she shares messages from Hathor about consciousness, humanity's transformation, and what she describes as a period of accelerated change for our planet. In this conversation, we explore her journey, the nature of channeling, the idea of non human intelligences interacting with humanity, and what these teachings might mean for the future of human consciousness. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dr. Yafi Yair. Hi, Yafi. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening. What time is it for you right now?
It is 1:45 p.m., so good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First of all, thank you very much for joining Something is Up.
My pleasure.
I am very excited about this conversation, about you as a professional, as a scientist, but also a channeler, and as a channeler also of a very specific entity of that I'm interested in, which is Hathor. But I've already done an introduction for a brief introductions for the audience, but I'd love to leave you the chance to introduce yourself and go a bit deeper into who you are, your story, and how you came to become a channeler.
How far back do you want me to start?
Start right at the beginning.
At the beginning, okay. So I was born and raised in Israel. So that's my background in terms of where I was raised, in a very, very secular family. So I was definitely the weird one with weird ideas, understandings. I was playing with energy since I was a toddler, a baby, as far back as I can remember, talking about really consciousness before I had the vocabulary for consciousness, including doing experiments like trying to move water with the energy from my hands. We're talking really, really young child. So I was always half there. But I didn't grow up in an environment that really supported that, like many, many people. So for the majority of my life, I put it aside and focused on my more scientific mind, which, lucky for me, I've always been kind of walking the line with both. I loved art and drawing and singing. The voice has always been a very powerful and important instrument for me. But I also really liked math, which is weird, right? And all sciences. So I've always kind of had both, and I've enjoyed both. But because of the environment that I grew up in, I did have creative outlets, but it stayed only creative. It was never allowed to go spiritual because it was just considered as nonsense by my parents and by people around me in general. However,
Understood. Understandably, yeah.
Yes, I think most people that were born more sensitive or with some psychic inclination are not necessarily in the most supportive environment for that, which may be a part of our journey, right? To develop a little bit of a harder skin because we're so sensitive, and to realize that we're going to have obstacles, that we're not always going to have all doors open to us. although most, I must say. So that's kind of my background. So not surprising, when it was time to be a grown up and choose a major in college, I chose psychology, which seemed to me like a perfect fit with my fascination with the human mind and potential and the subconscious. It was kind of, from normal professions, it was the one that obviously felt the most resonant for me. However, by the time I was close to graduating, I realized that the psychology field was quite close minded, especially we're talking now 13 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, quite closed minded. There was no really talk of energy, although energy psychology was a growing trend. It was not really accepted in day-to-day life. Most supervisors didn't really believe in that. And the same with hypnosis. Even mainstream hypnosis, which is what I was trained in clinical hypnosis, which was my gateway really in bringing more spiritual practices into my clinical practice. Again, back then, not all my colleagues believed in hypnosis, which is so funny because it's a known thing. It's an actual field in psychology. I was trained by the Psychological Association, APA, American Psychological Association. Yet most of the psychologists around me did not believe in hypnosis. So I found myself really being a black sheep and not very embraced, not only by my colleagues. When it was time to practice by myself independently, I learned pretty quickly that I'm actually not allowed to practice spiritual practices while holding a psychologist license. So really quickly, I realized that I had to choose. And you can imagine, at the end of 11 years of studies, it's not an easy leap to make. But I really had to choose whether to follow my heart and to follow my passion and go with what I find fascinating and what I feel also can give people more than the mainstream profession, or go the mainstream. And with my personality, I'm kind of a combination of a good girl and a rebel. I couldn't choose the mainstream path. I knew I had to follow my passion. And at the beginning, it was a very hard decision. But as soon as I made the decision and committed to it, I knew it was, again, not only the right thing to do, but the only thing that would keep me alive, right? And fortunately for me, I had a very supportive husband. So at least one person that was very, very supportive of my decision and my woo path, despite his initial lack of belief. But since then, we've grown together. My mind has expanded so much. So it started with hypnosis, where I discovered past life regression and life between lives and QHHT, which are different types of hypnosis that go very deep and communicate with the higher self and the subconscious. And I also, at the same time, started going to the Monroe Institute, started meditating daily in the opposite order. Started meditating daily first. About a year later, a year and a half later, started going to the Monroe Institute, which really helped me discerning different states of consciousness, really. Different altered states, and how to recognize more subtle senses and stimuli. And I really leaned into developing my intuition and psychic ability. So everything that I've been shutting down my whole life, in 2012, so we're talking 13 years ago now, I really dove all the way in, trying to open it up and lean into it. And it really did open. And I got a lot of information, a lot of energy, a lot of changes in my life, and a lot of things happened naturally in parallel. For example, I became a vegetarian, but it wasn't a one-time decision. It was kind of a gradual, natural thing. So a lot of things happen naturally and gradually, and some I had to be more proactive about. And about 6 years ago, I enrolled in a channeling course. It was a long-form course, many months, many daily practices, really in-depth course. Now, I have channeled before this course, but because channeling is such an, at least initially, an unverifiable, it's difficult to prove. It's difficult. It's very fluid, right? Most psychic work is very fluid. It's not as sharp edges as most sciences. Although fortunately, both are liquefying and beginning to merge, which is very, very good. So I've been through this journey, and enrolling in that course, although I channeled before, like I said, I wasn't really comfortable with it. It was still woo-woo. It was still unverifiable. I didn't know what box to put it in, so I decided to step away until that course. And that workshop gave me a really good playful space to practice, to engage without having to be clinically responsible, without just having a space to explore. And through that, finding trust in the process, finding value in the process and journey of channeling, it has really accelerated my personal growth, which sounds lovely, and it is, but it's also been very challenging because especially, and it may be true for all channeling, but especially integrating the divine feminine, which is what I have been doing. So one of the main sources that I still channel today is Hathor, through me introducing themselves as the divine feminine. And I, although very creative, growing up, I saw myself more as a tomboy, like climbing trees, just very, very practical, very direct, which is really the Israeli culture. But I didn't consider myself very, very feminine. And this process has really accelerated lessons and practices that connect to the feminine, that I didn't necessarily connect to the feminine, but that really talk about that directly. So let's give an example. So one thing that has been a part of my spiritual journey is being more heart-based. So really learning to open the heart, to experience things from the heart, to live from the heart, to share more freely, reduce judgment, etc., etc., etc.
Yep.
That is very common. If this is the first time anyone is hearing it, I don't know where you've been. So this is kind of a very common lesson and a part of spiritual journey. However, channeling Hathor, the divine feminine, has really taken this practice to the next level. And I have become even more vulnerable and more open. And that can be quite a challenging experience. And that is just one small example of how channeling took my spiritual journey even more personal and to the next level, and how something that is seemingly general, such as becoming more heart-based, is also specifically connected to integrating the divine feminine, to the consciousness shift that humanity is experiencing at this time, and all the changes that are taking place.
Yeah. Well, so many things to touch on. I have 1,000 questions, but let's start.
Excellent.
Let's start from the beginning. So, you were very sensitive to energy, you said, from childhood. Do you remember what that meant? Do you remember how you were perceiving energy and how your perceptions evolved, how they expanded, let's say, integrated new abilities, etc., etc.? What was the process? And I'm asking from, I'm an engineer, so from
No.
I love the mechanics of
Yes,
the abilities, how different people perceive it, because there are multiple abilities and multiple ways
absolutely.
to actually tune into those. So what
Yes.
was your experience?
So first of all, let's clarify when we're saying sensitive to energy, I was actually not sensitive physically. So some people feel things very viscerally. That was never my natural ability. Now I've integrated it and worked on it more and more, and I'm better at it. But my natural clairs, often people call it clairs, clairvoyant. So
Yep.
seeing, but again, not with my physical eyes. I didn't see auras, but I would get inner visions, precognitive inner visions, personal information about people, adults. So my vision, my inner vision was naturally developed when I was little, and my inner knowing, which can
Okay.
be called claircognizant, but the idea is that I would just have knowings that came often with the visions and sometimes separately. So I would say my most naturally developed sense is the inner knowing. And the secondary would be vision, inner vision. And when I was little, those seemed very natural to me. I did not recognize them as extra abilities, and they did not seem separate from my regular senses. So when I was little, it seemed so natural that I did not recognize them as psychic abilities or as gifts. I just assumed that everybody was like that because that was how I experienced the world. And as soon as I started verbalizing about it and acting out on it, like I said, with like strange little experiments, like trying to levitate, trying to move objects with my hands, all these strange ideas as this little child, as soon as I started verbalizing and acting out on those, I would get the reaction from my mom, who did not believe in any of that. So that made it very clear for me that my world was different. However, as most children, I believed my mom. So immediately I felt the need to adopt the idea that this is nonsense.
Yeah.
Making the voice inside of me saying that it's real smaller and smaller and smaller, although I had sparks of proofs, of evidence. So for example, when I was 8, I had a daylight UFO sighting. And it was, like I said, it was daylight. It was a big light in the sky. It grabbed mine and my friend's attention. We saw it together, and then it zigzagged in the sky and took off. And for me, it was the evidence that something magical is real, that it's more than we know, it's more than we see in our everyday life. And of
Absolutely.
course, I shared it with my mom, who concluded it was space junk. But I knew, for example, in that example, at age 8, I knew I was not on the same page with my mom. I knew it was something beyond. Like, how would space junk zigzag in the sky? I mean, it was so directional and intentional, and I felt it and I saw it.
And I
So I had
assume that you now believe that it was not coincidence that you saw it.
absolutely, absolutely. Now my hypothesis is one of two. Either it was to lift me up, to give me that seed of magic, because I went through some depression when I was around that age of 8. So either that, or that was them leaving, which then led to the depression. So I don't know which one is true, but
Did you
absolutely
have,
wasn't a coincidence. Yes.
why did you, the living one, did you have the perspective that they were with you growing up? But did you remember seeing beings or?
No, I never remembered seeing beings. The experiments that I was doing as a little child, now as an adult, and after hearing other people's accounts, I know this is an indication that I was trained on the ships. But no, I don't have any memory of beings. What I do have memories is going out of body. Well, no, coming back to my body as a regular basis, as a baby, as a little child. And I wasn't afraid of that. I was used to the sensation. I'm like, oh, here it is again. And I knew that at the end of it, I wake up.
Okay.
But only of coming back to the body. So my memory was always very, very cut off and fragmented. I was not allowed or not able to bring back the memories of what happened. And even in dreams, I never remember dreams of beings. I remember dreams of flying, those were regular for me. And I remember dreams of lights in the skies moving, but not one light, like whole constellation. You would see like a lot of light and they're all of a sudden moving, usually over the water. And I
Yeah.
would say, they're here. And nobody around me knew what I was talking about. So that dream was a repeated dream in different scenario, but always a lot of lights in the sky moving and me knowing that they are here. So
So
those
then
were my indications, but I never saw beings to this
so,
day, actually.
yeah. So I assume that then when you started studying Dolores Cannon, hypnosis and theories, etc., you realized you were one of the volunteers.
Well, realize is a strong word.
Believe.
Belief is even a stronger word.
Okay.
I became aware of the volunteers and I suspected that I may be from the second wave. But really suspect is the strongest I can give you here because I don't really know. Even the terminologies that we use today, such as star seeds, I'm not as
I understand.
set on those categories and names as some other people because I think we know so little.
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes putting things in boxes may limit us and our understanding. And because I feel that I know the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know, I try to keep things open as much as possible.
Yeah. I'm more confused now than when I started, for sure.
Then we're doing well.
Yeah. Terrifying. But so then let's move on to, you had these abilities though, at least the clairvoyance, the claircognizant, which are very strong abilities. And so when you left and when you, let's say you started going to the Monroe Institute, what was for you life and what was your journey before the Monroe Institute and after the Monroe Institute?
Mm-hmm. So I started going to the Monroe Institute in 2013 or 12, right around my big spiritual awakening. So before that, I still considered myself spiritual, but now looking back, it almost seems silly. I was spiritual because I wanted to believe in spiritual reality. That was my idea of being spiritual, of not being only focused on day-to-day mundane concerns, matters. But after that time, which we're talking 2012, 13, I really started accepting my reality as a non-physical spiritual being having this physical experience. And the more I anchored in this initially idea, then belief, and eventually an inner knowing and feeling, that which came together with starting focusing more on my heart chakra at first, again, then the terminology changed and changed and changed, then heart center, and now really heart-centeredness in general. So that plus, as I mentioned, my psychic abilities have opened more and more and more. But
Which
this
one?
time with my intention, with my desire and my embracing of them. So I really started living more as a truly spiritual person and being. And, that really does change your perspective and of everything.
What
And
was the trigger of the spiritual awakening that you were mentioning?
yeah, so initially the trigger was in inner. I didn't have initially anything outside that was really I could put my finger on. All of a sudden I became interesting in things, and you know how the universe, your higher self, aligns things. So all of a sudden around the same time I discovered the show Coast to Coast AM, which opened a whole spectrum of ideas that again I was not exposed to until then. And fortunately for me, my husband was also into that show, so it was a new hobby we explored together. So that was at the beginning. So I started reading books. So at first it was just an inner spark, inner interest. Now, within just a few months of that inner spark and inner interest, my mom, who was my absolute best friend, was diagnosed with cancer. And within 4 weeks of her being diagnosed, and they didn't even know which cancer yet, so it happened very, very fast. I woke up with the knowing that she was going to transition. She was going to cross over in exactly 30 days. I just woke up with that knowing. And I woke up with that knowing 3 mornings in a row. And at the third morning, I just knew. I'm like, I just know it so strongly. And remember, this was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. I was not convinced of the reality of it yet. My knowledge in spiritual texts and material was very, very minimal, very, very, very minimal. At that time, I read one book ever of channeled material, and I skipped the channeled part. Anyway, so and I woke up with that knowing, and I booked a ticket. I was in the United States, in Florida already, working on my doctorate, and my parents were in Israel. I woke up with that knowing, booked my ticket to Israel, which my parents were like, "No, you have to finish your semester. What are you doing? You can't come here." But I just knew so strongly. And I literally planned to be with my mom the last 2 weeks of her life so I can take care of her. And then with my dad a week after that so I can help him, and then go back to finish my semester. And that's exactly what happened with the dates that I had known internally. And both that knowing, which is the biggest validation you can get, plus the experiences that I had with my mom as she transitioned, after she transitioned, and the changes that happened with her spirit that I could feel so clearly, that was the biggest catapult into that spiritual awakening, because it wasn't anymore a theoretical interest or idea. It was personal, and it was also very urgent, because as soon as my mom's spirit began to move on and I felt her pulling away, I wanted contact. I wanted to reach her. So I started reading more about mediumship. I started practicing lucid dreaming and had great success, and started meeting with her regularly in my lucid dreams, which at this point became out-of-body experiences. So that really changed my journey and my spirituality into a personal, real, internal experience.
Understood. And yeah, first of all, I'm sorry to hear about your mom. It's been many years, but that's not something that goes away. My spiritual journey became 3 years ago because I lost my dad, and in similar ways, I was already I'd already been looking at the UFO subjects from an engineering perspective, nuts and bolts, machines in the sky. I had crossed over the psychic ability side of things and remote viewing, the Monroe Institute, and all of those things. So when my dad passed, I simply said I want to connect with him, and I started doing whatever I could. Became vegetarian, vegan, removing fluoride, stopped drinking coffee, meditating 2 hours a day, and finally the connection came. So I completely understand the journey. For you, it seems that it was extremely strong. Would you say so? On this one, I go always back and forth. I don't have a clear understanding nor a clear belief on how things work. So first of all, would you say that everybody can open up their psychic abilities, psychic senses?
Absolutely. It's a part, remember how it was for me as a child? It was a natural thing. Now, it's true that I was maybe gifted with a little more than the average. By the way, I do think it's a little more. I don't think there are people that are much, much more naturally psychic than me. But just like a musical ability, can anyone learn to play music or to sing? Yes. Is everybody going to sing or play music at the same level, or is it going to come to them as easily? No. Would regular practice be helpful? Yes. So it's very, very similar. And music inclination is also natural to human nature. We hear different tones. We have our voice that's capable of producing different tones. So just the same, it's a natural ability that can be then harnessed and encouraged, or it can be shut down. And if you shut it down and if you never practice, it's probably not going to be very developed.
Yeah. Well, what stops me from embracing this completely, this perspective completely, what has stopped me in the past was that there's also the belief that we choose pre-incarnation the experience that we want to have. So if we want to have an experience that is fully human, we might not be able to open up those abilities. Do you think that's also a possibility, that some people might say, no, this for me is I want to be fully into this experience, and so completely disconnected from other realities, dimensions, however we want to call them? Could that be also possible?
I think we go through different stages, not only in life, but personally, because journeys are very, very personal. And I think if people feel that, they should focus on the physical life and on the here and now. So let me answer it in different ways. There are layers to the question and the answer. So can everyone connect? Yes. Is it good to open up and connect at every stage in your life? No matter what your energy is like, no matter what your psychology is like, no. That's not necessarily the case. Would I recommend everyone to start meditating? Yes. Would meditating open you up psychically? Yes.
Okay.
But at your own pace, with the emphasis that actually staying grounded, staying in your body, and staying focused on the here and now in your life rather than what's out there is actually necessary, especially when the more you open, the more you want to ground. So that idea, and it's an idea that a lot of people have. Even I had it when I started. When I meditated, I clicked out all the time. That's a Monroe Institute terminology, but it means that I would disappear and then come back. Some people see it as falling asleep, but it's not exactly as the same as sleep. One of the indication, you come back when the meditation is finished. If you're sleeping, you're just going to continue sleeping. Anyway, going back to that, I used to click out every single time I meditated. And for me, it's a mark that I was very fragmented. And a part of it was my idea that I wanted to go there. And that's what I thought meditation was about. Now I have a different idea of meditation and of spiritual living in general, that it's not us going there, it's us learning to bring there here.
How do you do that?
Always want to stay grounded. You always want to stay grounded. Not everybody knows what it means, but stay in your body, stay focused on your life as it is now. If
I'm
your
still
life,
in the phase that I want to be there.
That's okay. Just continue also focusing on grounding, whatever
Absolutely.
grounding means for you. And
Absolutely.
over time, this may change for you or may not. Like I said, we go through different stages. You are old enough to know that you've had different stages in your life. You're not the same person, and you do not have the exact same ideas as you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We continually change and evolve, and that's going to change too. Meditation experiences, I've been meditating daily for 14 years. Yeah, for 14 years now. My meditations are not the same as they were in the beginning. My meditations are not the same as they were a year ago. And it's not that they're not the same because they're always improving. They're just changing. because I'm changing, because the world is changing. So my experiences are different.
For example, for people that do not meditate, that have never meditated before,
Mm-hmm.
what were your experiences at the beginning, and how did it evolve for you? And what's the meditation right now for you?
Mm-hmm. So at the beginning, I tried developing a meditative practice very unsuccessfully. I would meditate a little and then stop. I wasn't really getting into it until I discovered HemiSync and the Monroe's Institute audio technology. When I discovered that, I tried different ones, and then I found one product that I really, really loved. It was called, it's still available, Between Worlds. And it was different sounds and didgeridoo and occasional a little bit of drumming and something between music and sounds. And it has the frequency, the binaural beats that help you reach a deeper state of meditation. And the recording was long. It was about an hour long. And with this specific recording, I meditated every day for a full year. So finding that track, so one, I had music, I had some kind of a structure again, just like later with my channeling practice, I've learned that having some kind of a structure is really, really helpful. So having that recording and listening to it regularly, approximately the same time of day, so again, adding to that routine, that would really changed my meditation practice and help me dive all the way in without feeling that it's a chore, that I don't know how to do it, or that I'm doing something wrong. Now, as I mentioned, it's not like all of a sudden I was a perfect meditator. And it's not that it has not changed for me over the years, but back then that was the catalyst that allowed me to meditate for longer and to have it regularly and to really start enjoying it. And that is what I did for many, many, many years. Even when I listened to different tracks, I always preferred non-guided meditations. That's my personal. I do both, but my personal preference was always for non-guided, and because I wanted to go deep. That was always my purpose. And what else? And it also extended the length of my meditation. So it wasn't 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It was an hour every day. So for me, that was the big, big difference. Now today, sometimes I still use HemiSync. I love their products. I love the sounds. Sometimes I meditate in silence. Sometimes I meditate 12 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half. So I would say now it's more variable. Generally speaking, I am much more present now, which can sometimes be a challenge if my mind is very active. So it's a different kind of meditation, although I sometimes do disappear, whether click out or fall asleep if my body is very tired. So I think now that it's a part of my rhythm, my natural rhythm, it doesn't need to be as structured, although I still meditate every afternoon. So I still have certain habits that stuck with, but generally speaking is not as structured. And sometimes I will just breathe deeply and follow my breath. And other times I have a specific intention. And most of the time I don't have a specific intention. So if in the past I wanted to go out of body, now I see my meditations really as plugging in, almost like the phone that we plug into the wall to charge. This is me plugging in into source, to my higher self, however you want to see it. So often the intention is to energize the body, calm and energize the mind, and really just plug in.
Understood. And I mean, you said your psychic abilities opened up after your awakening during the Monroe Institute phase. What do you mean by that? What is it that expanded? What else opened up? How do you perceive the wider reality now?
So now or back then?
Well, how did it progress? Where did you start and where are you now?
Yeah, so when I started practicing a lot with different divination tools. An example, it's on cards. So I actually have the first deck I ever played with. I love this deck. It's an angel tarot deck. So it's a tarot cards, but with angel spin. So like positive, nice. An example why I love this card so much, this deck so much. The devil card is the ego. How wise is that? So I started playing with this deck, and at first I was amazed every time how the card that came up corresponds exactly to my question, because it was a process of believing and getting used to that connection. But also the process was, at the beginning, I would just read the card and read the booklet. And over time, it took me several years, 2 years, I would say, of fully practicing with the cards and meditating every day, that I began getting more information than the cards offered on the surface. I started seeing details in the card that became a part of the narrative that I was getting. I also, as my confidence increased, I was also offering readings to more people, still family and friends at first, but it wasn't just me and my husband. Me, my husband, and my sister are my only clients for a long time. And I started offering to other family members and other friends, and that opened even more, both the kind of information that I was getting. And again, at the same time, I'm meditating every day. I'm taking different courses. I'm taking this course in intuition development, and this course in scrying, and this course in channeling, and this shamanic course. So I was doing a lot of programs and courses and going to the Monroe Institute. So a lot of parallel things. But playing with the cards was really, really a very important tool for me. And I could really feel how my intuition was developing. At first, again, just the trust and the validation, looking for that validation. And at some point, you don't look for the validation as much. When it comes, it's still wonderful, but you're not searching for proof all the time. And then more and more information. And that really went back to when I was a child. My main gift was always that knowing. So for me, what really opened is that knowing. And really what I learned, is to connect to people's field. So it's the same as Akashic records, because I would tune into people and all this information would start coming. And I would know about their kids, about like really specific details. And that was my experience of becoming more open, more expanded, is what was my natural gift became growing and developing. And
Understood.
other stuff, like I said, like feeling energy, that didn't come to me naturally. I had to work at that a lot. And even now, it's definitely not my strength, but I'm a little better at it than I was 6 years ago.
I can imagine that. So I want to change subject a little bit. I want to go to the channeling side of things, and if we have some time, coming back to the Monroe Institute, etc. But so you channel, among other beings, energies, etc., Hathor. I assume that Hathor is also related to the Egyptian goddess, but is a
Absolutely.
divine feminine
Yes.
energy.
Also a Syrian collective. So
And
there's a
yeah,
lot there about what Hathor and Hathors. So some people talk about it as plural, the Hathors. I
yeah,
often say Hathor, but it really is the same essence, different
okay.
aspects of the same essence.
So the way I've distinguished it is, so I don't know if you know the story of Chris Bledsoe.
Yes.
Okay, so Chris told the story of what she called the lady, and the lady giving the name Hathor to him, among other ones, but saying that she's been called many names in history: Isis, Hathor, etc., etc.
Guanyin. That's one of the first messages I got
Yeah,
when I started channeling. One of the first things that came through, that Hathor was just a name.
yeah,
There's still a reason why they choose this name, because it's a more accurate archetype, which we can talk about. But one of the first things they said is Hathor, the name is really just for humans. And different cultures over different civilizations have given that essence different names. And they even gave me examples, such as Kuan Yin. I don't remember, Venus and Aphrodite. These are all
Diana,
representations of this feminine, higher essence.
And instead, when we talk about Hathors, normally we talk about, at least in the context of Chris Bledsoe, we talk about the orbs of light that become, there are in essence beings of light that he represented as small red eyes with a triangle on his chest, but very particular beings. And he became the center of attention for the US government. He's probably the most studied contactee that there is. He's collaborating with all the possible three-letter agencies in the US government, with NASA, etc. So his story is quite interesting. And Hathor apparently gave him visions, took him on a journey and gave him vision of this particular time, 2026, 2027, and the shifting consciousness, etc., etc. So my first question to you would be, if you can answer, is consider that you're channeling the same entity. Did the government ever reached out to you to know anything about what you're channeling and the messages that you're getting from Hathor?
No, I was never reached out by any officials.
Any officials? And do you,
although I also see orbs, and they also correspond. But honestly, we're saying orbs. I want to be clear that the orbs are either ships or actual beings. And the fact that we're seeing orbs is kind of a bridge to physical contact. So the orbs are made out of plasma, and those beings are multidimensional, and they are working both with us, both psychologically to accept physical contact, but also physically. Right now, our bodies cannot handle their frequency, and they've tried with me. It's very, very intense. It's like being electrocuted by lightning. We're not yet compatible, although it's changing. We're raising in frequency, we as humans, very, very quickly. And so we're getting closer and closer to that physical contact, not only with physical beings on Earth, but with semi-physical, multidimensional beings, such as Hathor and many others. And that's what the orbs are.
No, I completely understand. I completely agree. Yes. And so what messages, what was the underlying, I mean, I assume that there's been incredible wisdom coming through. What were the most important elements of this wisdom for you? And what's happening right now? What's happening right now on this planet? What's happening right now for humanity? What is it that you came to believe after becoming a channel for Hathor?
So the initial message that was very significant was that these are extreme times of change, that the shift is coming, and that they see it as very, very exciting times. So for them, it's very exciting. It's something that they've been waiting for. And there was a preparation. And we're talking a few years ago. So now it's very, very obvious. But the preparations started several years ago when they said all the old systems need to be breaking down. So, and you're going to experience it. We are experiencing it now. Back then it was future talk. Now it's here, we're seeing it. But they were preparing us as much as possible. They said the reason we're in contact with you now is the same time we were in contact with humanity during ancient Egyptian time. So whenever humanity is going through a drastic shift, accelerated changes, that's when those loving higher dimensional beings come into contact with us so they can support us and guide us through the process. And in this case, and this was all explained through my channeling, which again, back then I had no exposure to other channeling at all. So it was really good. It was very pristine for me. I knew I wasn't being influenced. So they said that during the ancient Egyptian time, the cycle, we did an upgrade. Upgrade is my word. They never use the word upgrade. I like saying level up, but again, my words, Yafi's words, not their words. So time go through these cycles. It's like a spiral. And during the ancient Egyptian time, we went into another cycle of winter or dark cycle, but we moved away from contact and awakening. And now we're repeating that area of the spiral. We never repeat the same place because it's a spiral, it's moving.
Yeah.
But the same part of the spiral, only we're not dropping to another sleep period. We are leveling up. Again, my words.
Yeah.
And that is why they're in contact with us now. And unlike before, where they had to leave, which was very painful for them and for us, them is the multidimensional beings, us as humans. Today, they don't have to leave. Today, we are being prepared for full-on physical contact and open contact, which is very, very exciting.
Absolutely.
Which is what the message that they've had from the beginning. To keep in mind the excitement of the times, because they said there is turmoil coming. And they often warn me and my Sunday group before big fires and big storms. So Hathor is very connected to the earth, to Mother Earth, and to the elements. There's this connection there, which is easier for us to think about when we think about them as the divine feminine, because then we understand, oh yeah, divine feminine, Mother Earth, we can kind of feel more of a connection there. But they're very, very involved with that. So I often get warnings when things like this are coming. So that was the main message about how exciting these times are, how much changes are going to take place, and that anything, and that's crucial, that's very important. Anything that's broken, anything that's corrupt, anything that needs to go for the new us to fully live here in the new earth has to come to the surface. Things can no longer be hidden. Things can no longer be ignored. So they have been saying that for several years. And this was an attempted preparation for what we're seeing today, which we are seeing a lot of corruption, we can just keep it at corruption, a lot of corruption, a lot of greed. And it's not that these were not there before, but they were more accepted and swept under the rug. So now it's all coming to the surface so we can choose how we want to deal with it and how we can face it without avoidance or any other way. We have to face everything.
Understood. Do you feel like channeling Hathor today?
Sure. Would you like light language, verbal messages? We haven't
Whatever
talked
you-
about light language and field tuning.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
So Hathor is their specialty. One of their main specialties is actually sound. Sound is frequency, and sound is they don't use the word healing really, but healing frequency as medicine, as a tool. And a lot of people are familiar with light language. So they have introduced me to the term field tuning because their light language is both the spoken part, which I feel comes more from Isis, and sounds and tones, which I feel comes more directly from Hathor.
Okay.
And as I mentioned, there's sounds and tones. It's not exactly speech. And that's what they call field tuning. And it really interacts with your field. So it changes the way your energy flows. It opens certain pathways. And you don't need to know anything, or you don't have to feel anything. All you have to do is receive. And it's very similar to energy healing, but it includes sound. And what's really cool is that most people can feel it. Even people that usually cannot feel anything or say, oh, I don't know, how do I know when I'm feeling something? Usually with this specific field tuning, they do feel. So that's really nice to give people that experience.
Sure, absolutely. Super excited about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm pretty quick with my process. For people that are not very familiar with channeling, I'm going to be closing my eyes and going inward. I'm basically taking the back seat, allowing them to lead the way in terms both of what sounds coming out of me and what to say. So Yafi is really going to be in the background here and less present. However, fortunately, probably because meditating so many years and because of the Monroe Institute, it is pretty quick for me. So I close my eyes, I go inward, and they're pretty much there immediately. I usually take a few seconds to really settle into the energy, and we're there.
So it's trance channeling for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're going to start, and I'm going to let them talk afterwards. Or do you want me to come back?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Ar aniakaturus tuhum ar ai in at ar. Horanieta hai. Uromahaniraieta hai. Humaharohom. Take a nice deep breath. Nirata rostu homare kayena to tum. Horomane karo homayena. Or oniakitarastuhum anarakatan. Ikena turo stay en irana. Ruom aniakaturo om en arasti. Greetings and blessings to you. We will start talking as the energy is still moving. We wouldn't be surprised if you're feeling it in your head. We usually end the field tuning by grounding the energy. But in this case, after grounding the energy, we went back to the mind to help clear and calm the mind. So we wouldn't be surprised if you feel all kind of things moving and happening around your head. We are happy to share this space with you, and we will now allow you to ask any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Hathor. It's a pleasure to be able to ask you questions. My first question would be about your role right now for humanity, because we know, many of us know, that humanity right now is in contact with many non-human intelligences, which have different roles and interact with us in different ways. For some people, there are both positive and negative interactions. But it seems, based on what many channelers say, that your role instead is very different, it's very specific, it's very overarching for humanity. So I would like to know
Yes.
more about that.
Yes. So most people, when they talk about contact, even open contact or physical contact, do talk about different beings. And indeed, there are many, many beings either already on your planet, around your planet, or observing the planet from a safe distance. And this is an indication of the time you are in, which indeed is very exciting. Now, and we're not the only group, if we would call it that has a unique and specific role, but our role is more than just a physical group of beings coming to participate. Our role started before humans existed on this planet. So from your perspective, as humans, as people, we are a part of your descendants and ancestors. You would see us relating to your past and your future. So our presence here is not that you live on this planet and we came to assist. There is some truth in that, but the reality is of a much wider and deeper involvement with the earth herself and with the development of consciousness as a part of the earth system. So indeed, our role is beyond just coming to facilitate contact.
Thank you. And do you have, you as the Hathor collective, you as the divine feminine energy that we call Hathor, have you had interactions with our governments? Because although we've been told by many channelers that we are living this transition, we're approaching open contact, and there is a controlled disclosure of this information, even piloted by some of the beings. We also see on the planet more wars, more conflicts, all things that feel almost disconnected from this idea that we're evolving, that consciousness is growing, it's expanding, etc. And so I was wondering whether there is right now our governments are rejecting your support to transition to this new phase, or there is a concerned effort to transition humanity to a new state of being.
Mm-hmm. Our effort has been to stay away from governments and officials on your planet. So the contact that we have mostly engaged with are individuals such as Dr. Yafi here and groups that are initiating contact. Now, there is some of our essence that has been interacting with governments. However, from our end, we have to keep it to very, very limited, both for our protection, not that they can kill us, but it would hurt the process. It would complicate the situation if they attempted capturing us or hurting us. And there has been attempts by the government to capture different groups that are spacefaring and are interacting with the earth, either living within the earth or coming and going, really both. So from our perspective, we have been limiting the contact with the government. That is why, for example, our physical location, we have been on the earth in the physical for approximately a couple of years in your linear time, we have kept our location secret and secured to minimize possible unintentional interactions. So now you also mentioned that there are wars on the planet and other indications that seem to contradict a rise in consciousness. Now we will bring back into the conversation a notion that was mentioned prior to this channeling about our message that all must come up to the surface. This is not a symbolic notion. Let us take into example the situation in the Middle East. Energies have been intense there for millennia. It's not always the same. It changes. There are on and off periods, but this area has seen turmoil and changes and conflict for very, very, very long. So this is not new. What is new is, as we mentioned, everything is out on the surface. So unlike 2,000 years ago, you have computers and TVs and the internet. You have people connected more than ever before. And you have the crossing of energetic patterns. Sometimes it's difficult to describe things in words that are converging, intensifying the field even more so, forcing again any remainder of conflict up to the surface. So this is a necessary phase for long-lasting peace to come. And different areas on your planet are holding different geometry that calls for different playing out of events. So there are locations on your planet that are more peaceful than ever. And there are places on your planet where conflict that has originated millennia of years ago now must play out in full force in order for whatever needs to happen for peace. So people will eventually get fatigued by the governments that are not fighting for peace. And that is a necessary step for the people.
Understood. There are more and more people that are experiencing contact, that are experiencing channeling, and sometimes it feels that not all those messages are really in the greatest good of all. Sometimes it feels that there is deception coming out of those messages as well. And how do we develop our discernment? I'll tell you, I had that experience directly of entities pretending to be who they were not.
You used the word discernment in your question, and that is indeed the heart of the answer.
And how do you develop?
By practice, like anything else. The more you learn, so when you experience something you do not like, you now know that you do not like it. You now know that you don't have to choose that again. That is a part of developing experience, developing discernment, and also developing, and this is important, the subtle senses that are required in order to have more acute discernment. So in order for your discernment to get better, you must learn to feel things that you are not used to feeling. These are the subtle senses, and as they sound, they feel very subtle. Then you, as an individual, must learn to become a very good listener. And over time, that is how you develop your discernment. So don't have fear, but at the same time, be quiet enough so you can truly listen to your body, to your gut, to your mind, to your emotions. There are so many parts of yourself that are participating in this moment in time of increased discernment, increased sensitivity, increased openness. So increased openness may mean more beings and energies can now interact with your field, but it also means it is time to stay grounded in your body, as this will allow you to develop certain subtle senses, but reduce the fear. Keep the mind open, flexible, curious, but reduce the fear. Is this helpful at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I don't have fear anymore. It's simply
Excellent.
I'm annoyed about the deception, but not in fear.
So know that this is not there to hurt you.
I
It
know.
is there to teach you discernment.
Yeah, I assume that perspective now. I embrace that perspective. Can I
Excellent.
ask you personally, have you been in contact with me as well?
Yes, but we don't know if you're asking. So let us say that. In the conversation prior to the channeling, you mentioned that your spiritual journey has intensified in the last 3 years.
Yes.
We feel that the contact with our essence was much, much, much prior to that, decades prior to this. So yes, but we're not sure if this is what you're asking.
No, I'm talking about 2 days ago. I'm talking about
So
now.
we're talking when you were in your 20s.
I
You
had no.
had, when you were 22, and
Okay.
when you were a child, as this came naturally.
Okay. No, I don't have particular memories about that time. Understood. Are there any general rule of thumbs to discern whether a message is in the greatest good of humanity or not? For instance, there are a lot of channelers that predict doom and gloom scenarios all the time, and with very specific dates. And that for me is always curious when people give specific dates, the 18th of that month or the 26th of the other month, etc., etc.
Yes.
My discernment tells me that those are manipulations and lies, etc. But I could be wrong. So
So instead of manipulations and lies, we can use the word interference. Those are interferences, which means that the channeling may not be clear. Now, let us say this. Channeling is always, and yes, always influenced by the vehicle that's producing the channeling. Although some people may think, oh no, this is Hathor speaking, so Dr. Yafi has nothing to do with that. That is not true. Dr. Yafi has to work very hard to keep her body, mind, and energy clear. And it is not work, it's an ongoing work, ongoing investment. The same is expected of you. So first of all, people channeler that are less clear will have more interference. But this is where it comes to you. You don't have to be a channel, but you do have to have some kind of investment towards becoming a clearer channel for your own essence. And when we talk about, for example, reducing fear, that is a part of it, right? So you are here called to do your own clearing work that will then allow you to have better discernment and to lean into. Now, lean into certain messages and certain sources and then practice that discernment. Now, you already noticed that some things feel to you. You use the word lies and manipulation. These are very strong words. That means that you have gone beyond the subtle inclination that this message does not resonate with you and with your highest good. You have already gone to the point of extreme feelings about it. You don't even need to go that far, as long as you pay attention when you start getting that inkling. So really, if something sounds like lies or manipulation, if something sounds like doesn't resonate with you, or you don't understand it, you may put it in the no, throw it away, or you may put it in your maybe basket. And that is just fine. But you notice that even in the question, you already have the answer of what messages you feel more aligned with and what messages not so much.
Understood. For me, the difficulty is when you use the word aligned or not aligned. I struggle with that, with accepting that it's a matter of alignment, because sometimes I feel that some things should be certain way. Yeah.
Let us address this, because this is important. When Dr. Yafi started channeling, she kept on asking for the most accurate information. And we corrected her, the most helpful information. She did not like this. Her scientific mind, just like yours, wanted concrete, absolute facts. This is not possible for a constantly growing and changing mind, as you all acquire. You all have one. Because your understanding keeps on expanding, which means your perception of reality keeps on changing. So what was true for you with a past understanding will no longer be accurate or helpful for you as you continue to grow in your perception and understanding. So keeping this in mind, you may hear information from a channeler that may have an inkling of truth, but it is contextualized with their framework.
Understood.
Which may then give it an image on a different background would look different, right?
Understood.
A black circle on a black background will just look like a black page. Yeah. A black circle on a white background is all of a sudden a black circle.
Yeah.
That is why a message is not an absolute truth or not, and that is why we bring the matter of alignment. Does this make more sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, last questions, and you've been very generous with your time. Yafi has been very generous with her time. Humans tend to have conflicts, and the universe is ginormous, is huge. I believe that there are billions, if not trillions, of life forms, and we interact with many already. Not one, not two, not three, but probably in the hundreds of different types of beings and energies, etc. And it feels difficult to believe that they're all good. Like for humans, we're not all good. We don't express, not while we're incarnated. Mm-hmm. And so is there right now a war of factions also in the invisible for humans? And so to deceive and control.
we will say that this dimension is comprised of dichotomy. It has the density of the dimension. We don't want to use big words because we want people to understand. The density of this dimension means where you live right now in this physical world. You have good and bad, hard, soft. As a result, you are going to experience things as this one or the other. However, when you go to the bigger picture, beyond the view of just this dimension, you truly see how outside world is a reflection of your inside world, not only of you as an individual, but of humanity as of people, as of a field. As long as humanities are still going through that polarized experience, you will have external forces, factors, beings, people, groups that correspond. However, as you know, we are talking about a raise in consciousness, meaning that you will see an increase of people truly doing the inner work requires to bring peace, inner peace, and you will see the ripple effect, which is not one causes the other. They're one of the same. They are looped together. You will see more peace upon your planet. So yes, of course, there are forces that you would consider negative because people are still fragmented and still experience that polarity.
Understood. Apologies, I have one last question that I just remember, which is there's a very famous in this community contactee that have claimed that it's been in contact with you and you appeared as Hathor, divine feminine, not in physical form, but physically to him. And that is Chris Bledsoe. And to Chris Bledsoe brought to the community, to governments, predictions about this year in particular as the year of a new knowledge coming to humanity and next year. Can you tell us whether or not you are the same consciousness that was in contact with Chris Bledsoe and what these predictions are about?
The short answer is yes. Although we will say it is not the same yes as you would say you just went to the grocery store. Is it the same you that's sitting here now? It is not the same yes. As we are not one being that can material and then go back to here, or however you would like to understand it. The nature of consciousness and the nature of essence and collective is much more nuanced than this. However, if we talk about it in general, yes, we are the same essence that appeared to him and communicated to him. We provided that indication for him by coming forth with the image of a cow. So when we appeared to Chris Bledsoe, we also appeared with a cow to further indicate to him the connection to Hathor.
Yep. And what were the predictions? Can you tell us the prediction for 2026?
The predictions, we do not call them predictions. We are saying, have said and are saying and will continue to say that the time that you are living now is time of accelerated change and advancement in terms of your consciousness expansion. Where you are now, especially this year and next year. If you take a little bit of a broader perspective, in 2012, there was one jump, then 2020, another jump, then 2024, another jump. Now, if you notice, the times are getting by halves. 2012 to 2020 is 8 years. 2020 to 2024 is 4 years. 2024 to your current year of 2026 is 2 years. Then the following year, 1 year. So in this accelerating steps of consciousness, you are currently pressed through the eye of the needle. You are here now, but you may say that in this countdown, 2027 is the quantum year.
Quantum year being also the year of open contact?
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome. Hello.
You back?
I'm back.
How are you feeling?
Hot, but good.
Do you need some
And
water?
thirsty. Yes, I will get water soon.
Well, that was intense. Thank you very much for the time that you allowed us. Did you hear? Do you hear normally the messages, or do they vanish soon after?
Both, yes. So I hear as they're happening, but then when I come back, at first it feels like it's all there, and then it kind of disappears like a dream when you wake up and you remember elements. Yeah. But then it comes back, especially if we talk about it, certain things reminds me of it, then it comes back. Very, very similar to a dream. It seems like the brain processes this very similar to a dream.
Well, I took a lot of your time, so I want to let you go. But before I let you go, first of all, I want to ask whether or not you have a final comment for the audience, something else that you want to say. And then how can people engage with you, work with you, and where they can find you, basically?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm a clinical psychologist and I specialize in hypnosis, but as you notice, I also channel and do readings. So a few things that I'm doing that I really, really love and love to share, love to do and love to share. I have a Sunday group where I channel, similar to what you heard today, both the field tuning and take messages from the group members. And I love doing that. It's a really beautiful, loving group and beautiful space to be in. I also teach light language, and I love doing that. It's all about teaching you to be clear, to hold that space, and then express it with your voice. So I love doing that, and I recommend. Of course, I have books, 2 books out. The last one is Conversations with Hathor. So I recommend reading the books. I also have the audio where I narrate it. So you can listen to my voice. It's as close as it gets to really being there when the channeling happens. I also do different programs and travels. I just came back to Egypt, thankfully, before they shut down Egypt. Yeah. And we had an amazing experience. We had the whole Giza Plateau to ourselves. We went inside the pyramid. Again, we can have whole shows just about that. So I just encourage people to go to my website, YafiChanneling.com. Yafi, my first name, Y-A-F-I.
Yeah,
channeling.com. Excellent. There you can get in contact, read about the groups, find the books, and all the other fun stuff.
Thank you very much, Yafi. It's been a pleasure. And we will talk again.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Bye. Thank you so much for watching. Something is Up is still at the very beginning, so every bit of support makes a huge difference in my ability to bring you more amazing stories and incredible guests. If you enjoy this conversation and feel called to support the channel, I'd be super grateful if you could just click the like and subscribe buttons and share the video with anyone you think might enjoy. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.